He does not see the dismissal coming. Stay with me to the end. Subscribe. Drop the words "stay" in the comments. Elias Vance stands near the back of the polished showroom, a ghost in grease-stained but clean work clothes. He is a fixture, like the massive I-beams that hold up the roof or the lingering scent of cutting oil that even the industrial cleaners cannot completely erase. Around him, a world of champagne flutes and quiet murmurs unfolds. Men in sharp suits and women in elegant dresses cluster around the centerpiece, the reason for the celebration. The A7 Marine engine. It sits on a chromed pedestal under a dozen spotlights, its housing painted a deep corporate blue. It is a monument to power and precision, the culmination of 3 years of work. Elias knows every bolt, every gear, every millimeter of tolerance within that housing. He knows the sound it is supposed to make, a low, confident hum that speaks of perfectly balanced components. He also knows the sound it is making right now. It is a subtle thing, a slight tremor in the polished concrete floor that no one else seems to notice, a vibration just a few hertz off from specification. He watches the new CEO, Eleonora Shaw. She stands at the podium, her father's name a heavy mantle on her shoulders. She is poised, her voice clear and steady as she speaks of legacy and innovation. Elias remembers her as a girl, visiting the factory with her father, Arthur. She had pigtails then, and a smudge of grease on her cheek she did not know was there. Now her hair is a severe, dark line, and her face is a mask of professional composure. She does not look toward the back of the room. She does not see him. Marcus Thorne, the chief operating officer, stands just behind her, a hand resting lightly on her elbow. He leans in, whispering something in her ear. Elias watches Thorne's mouth. He has watched that man for 20 years. He knows the shape of his whispers. They are always sharp, always designed to cut. Eleonora nods, her expression tightening almost imperceptibly. She concludes her speech, and polite applause fills the cavernous space. As she steps away from the podium, the demonstration begins. A technician presses a button on a remote console. The A7 sputters. It is not a loud noise. It is a wet cough, followed by a puff of oily black smoke that hangs in the spotlight beams like a bad omen. A collective intake of breath. The engine shudders and then falls silent. The tremor in the floor ceases. The silence in the room is absolute. Elias does not move. He feels the failure in the bones of his feet, a familiar ache. He had warned them. He had filed the report on the substandard fuel injectors 3 weeks ago. The report had gone to Marcus Thorne. Thorne is at Eleonora's side again, his voice a low, urgent murmur. He points a discreet, manicured finger toward the back of the room. Toward Elias. Eleonora's gaze follows the line of his finger. Her eyes find him. For the first time all evening she sees him. There is confusion in her eyes, then dawning, directed anger. She begins to walk toward him. The crowd parts for her like water for a ship's bow. She moves with a hard, determined grace. Elias stands his ground. He straightens his back but does not cross his arms. He keeps his hands loose at his sides, the calluses on his palms a silent testament to his work. She stops a few feet in front of him. Her eyes are the same grey as her father's, but Arthur's held warmth. Hers are chips of winter ice. "Mr. Vance," she says, her voice low but carrying in the stillness. She does not wait for a reply. "Marcus tells me you were responsible for the final calibration on the demonstration unit." Elias meets her gaze. He does not say that he was. He does not say that he was also the one who flagged the injectors that were installed against his recommendation. He says nothing. "This is a public humiliation for my company, for my father's company." she continues, her voice tight with controlled fury. He can smell her perfume, something expensive and floral that cannot cover the acrid scent of burnt fuel. I will not tolerate incompetence or sabotage. The word hangs in the air between them. Elias feels the weight of 200 pairs of eyes on him. He feels the quiet satisfaction radiating from Marcus Thorne, who watches from a safe distance. He thinks of his promise to Arthur Shaw, made just a week before the man's heart gave out. Watch over her, Elias. Watch the company. Thorne is not what he seems. Your services are no longer required on the A7 line, Eleonora says, her voice cold and final. Report to facilities maintenance tomorrow morning. You can spend your time fixing leaky faucets. It is a public stripping of rank, a demotion designed to inflict maximum shame. And use the freight elevator, she adds, a final, sharp twist of the knife. You are no longer welcome on this floor. She turns her back on him. The moment stretches. Elias Vance does not flinch. He does not protest. He does not offer a single word in his own defense. He simply holds her gaze until she breaks it. Then he gives a single, small nod. It is a gesture of acceptance, not defeat. He turns, his work boots making no sound on the polished floor, and walks toward the steel doors of the freight elevator at the far end of the hall. The murmuring of the crowd resumes behind him, a confused, excited buzz. He does not look back. He presses the large, greasy button and waits. The doors grind open with a weary sigh. He steps inside. As the doors slide shut, he's stopped, a hand on his arm. It is Governor Hayes, a man whose face is known throughout the state. Elias, the governor says, his voice low. What was that? Elias looks at the man. He remembers a different night, a night of roaring water and screaming wind. He remembers pulling this man's daughter from a submerged car, the icy water stealing the breath from his lungs. Just a misunderstanding, sir, Elias says. The governor's grip tightens. A misunderstanding? That girl just crucified you. Arthur would be spinning in his grave. Let me talk to her. She needs to understand who you are. Elias gently removes the governor's hand from his arm. No, sir, he says quietly. Please don't. Why not? I owe you. My family owes you. Because she's Arthur's daughter, Elias says. She needs to see it for herself. The elevator doors attempt to close again. Elias holds them open with one hand. Let it be, he says. He steps fully into the elevator and presses the button for the ground floor. The last thing he sees before the doors close is the governor's stunned, uncomprehending face. The elevator smells of ozone and hydraulic fluid. It descends with a shudder. Elias leans against the cool metal wall and closes his eyes for exactly 3 seconds. Then he opens them. He has a promise to keep. Eleonora Shaw sits in her father's chair, but it does not feel like hers. The leather is worn in the shape of another man's body. The vast mahogany desk feels like a barricade. Through the floor-to-ceiling window, the city lights glitter, cold and distant. It has been 3 days since the disastrous launch event. 3 days, and she cannot shake the image of Elias Vance's face. She replays the moment of his dismissal again and again. She had expected anger, denial, pleading. She had been prepared for a scene. What she got was silence, and that look in his eyes. It was not insubordination. It was not fear. It was patience, as if he were waiting for her to catch up to a truth he already knew. It is unsettling. Marcus has been a model of efficiency, of course. He produced a file on Vance within an hour of the incident. It painted a picture of an old-timer, resistant to new methods, repeatedly clashing with management over protocol. A good mechanic in his day, Marcus had said, his tone dripping with false sympathy. But the industry has passed him by. Arthur kept him on for sentimental reasons. It all makes perfect, logical sense. So why does a knot of unease remain coiled in her stomach? She picks up a heavy silver pen, a gift from her father. "Trust your gut, Ellie," he used to say. "It's a finer instrument than any balance sheet." Her gut is telling her she made a mistake. A sharp rap on her door makes her jump. It is Marcus, his face a mask of concern. "The storm is getting worse," he says, stepping inside. "The Weather Service just issued a flash flood warning for the industrial park. And we have a problem." A flicker of lightning illuminates his face, casting harsh shadows. "The backup generators are offline. Both of them." Eleonora stands. "What do you mean, offline? You assured me the new system was foolproof." "It is," Marcus insists, a little too quickly. "This must be a fluke, a power surge from the grid. I have our best electricians on it, but the main grid just went down. The whole plant is dark." Eleonora grabs her coat. "The server rooms," she says. "The cooling systems are down. We have minutes before they start to overheat. That's all our proprietary data." "I know," Marcus says, following her out the door. "We're doing everything we can." The main factory floor is chaos. Emergency lights cast long, dancing shadows. Men are shouting, their voices echoing in the vast space. The rain hammers against the metal roof, a relentless, deafening drumbeat. Eleonora finds the chief electrician near the silent, hulking forms of the new backup generators. "The main control boards are fried," the man yells over the storm. "Both of them. Looks like a massive surge. I've never seen anything like it." "Can you bypass them?" Eleonora asks. The man shakes his head. "They're too complex. It's all integrated circuits. We need new boards from the manufacturer. That's days away at best." Panic, cold and sharp, begins to prickle at the edges of her composure. This will be catastrophic. Her first real crisis as CEO, and it will end in a total loss of their most valuable assets. Then she hears it. Beneath the roar of the storm, a new sound, a steady, rhythmic chugging. It is coming from the old maintenance bay at the far end of the plant, a place that was supposed to have been decommissioned. She walks toward the sound, Marcus trailing behind her, looking confused. The bay is lit by a single bare bulb, powered by the very engine that is making the noise. It is an ancient diesel generator, a relic from her grandfather's era. It is running perfectly, and standing next to it, his hands moving with calm, unhurried precision, is Elias Vance. He's connecting a series of heavy cables to the plant's old manual switchboard. He wears a simple rubber apron over his work clothes. He does not seem to notice the chaos outside this small circle of light. He works with an economy of motion that is mesmerizing to watch. Every tool is exactly where it needs to be. Every movement has a purpose. He throws a large, rusted lever on the wall. With a deep groan, lights flicker on in the section of the plant that houses the server rooms. A cheer goes up from the electricians. Elias does not acknowledge it. He places a hand on the side of the old generator, his palm flat against the vibrating metal, as if checking its pulse. He closes his eyes for a moment. Eleonora finds her voice. "Vance." He opens his eyes and turns to her. There is no surprise on his face. "The servers have power," he says simply. His voice is flat, a statement of fact. "How did you do this?" she asks, gesturing to the relic of a machine. "She was retired, not dead," he says. "Just needed a little attention. I keep her maintained." "Why?" Marcus sputters, stepping forward. "That machine was supposed to be scrapped." Elias looks at Marcus. For the first time, Eleonora sees something hard in his eyes. Because new isn't always better, he says. Sometimes it's just cheaper. He turns his back on them and begins to wipe his tools with a clean rag, laying each one carefully in its place. The message is clear. The conversation is over. The storm eases an hour later. The main power is restored. Eleonora, needing a formal report, looks for Elias. She finds him in the nearly empty parking lot by a modest, older model truck. The driver's side door is open and the cab light is on. A little girl sits in the passenger seat, a sketchbook open on her lap. She has dark, serious eyes, just like her father. Elias is leaning against the truck, looking up at the sky as the last of the storm clouds break apart. Eleonora approaches cautiously. "Mr. Vance," she says. He turns. The little girl looks up from her drawing. She looks at Eleonora, her head tilted. "Daddy fixed the angry machine," the girl says, her voice small and clear. Elias puts a hand on his daughter's head, a gesture of immense, gentle affection. "It wasn't angry, Lilybug," he says softly. "Just tired." Lily looks back at Eleonora. "He's good at fixing sad things," she says with the profound certainty of a child. Eleonora looks from the daughter to the father. She sees the way he stands, a quiet shield between his child and the world. She sees the exhaustion in his face, but also a deep, unshakable calm. She opens her mouth to say, "Thank you." She opens it to ask about the generators, but the words do not come. Instead, she just stands there, the child's simple declaration echoing in the space between them. He's good at fixing sad things. The knot of unease in her stomach tightens into a cold, hard certainty. She has made a terrible mistake. The next morning, Eleonora is in her office before sunrise. The air smells of wet pavement and ozone. She bypasses Marcus's neatly organized digital files. She goes to her father's old archives, a dusty, paper-filled room in the basement. She pulls the service logs for the new backup generators. The purchase order was signed by Marcus Thorne. The supplier is a company she has never heard of, Apex Power Solutions. A quick search reveals Apex was incorporated 6 months ago, has no website, and is registered to a post office box. It is a shell corporation. Her blood runs cold. She starts pulling older project files, going back years. She finds the original design schematics for the A7 engine. Tucked inside the folder is a handwritten note from her father. The handwriting is rushed, almost frantic. A7 prototype, engine block resonance issue, CEV for final calibration. Trust his hands, not the numbers. EV, Elias Vance. She stares at the note. Her father, a man who lived and died by data and metrics, telling her to trust a man's hands over the numbers. She spends the day in a haze of meetings, feigning a composure she does not feel. Marcus is solicitous, hovering, praising her for her calm leadership during the storm. His words feel oily, false. Every smile he gives her feels like a threat. That evening she has a charity gala to attend. It is one of her father's obligations, now passed to her. She moves through the glittering crowd, feeling like an imposter. A man with a kind, weathered face and a familiar political smile approaches her. "Miss Shaw," he says, extending a hand. "Governor Hayes. I was a great admirer of your father." "Governor," she says, shaking his hand. "Thank you." "Shaw Maritime," he says, glancing at the name badge on her dress. "You have a man named Vance working for you. Elias Vance." Eleonora's heart skips a beat. "Yes," she says carefully. "I do." The governor's smile becomes genuine, warm. "He's the finest man I know," he says. "Saved my family's life a few years back. Flash flood up on the North Fork. My car was swept off the road. Elias went into the water and pulled my daughter out of the back seat. Never said a word about it. Never asked for a thing. Eleonora is speechless. Your father knew his worth, the governor continues, his voice lowering. Arthur once told me, most men build things. Elias understands them. He called him the soul of his company. The soul of his company. A man she had sent to the freight elevator. A man she had ordered to fix toilets. Thank you for telling me that, Governor, she manages to say, her voice tight. She excuses herself and leaves the gala. She does not go home. She drives to the plant. The night watchman knows her car and lets her through the gate. The factory is silent and dark, a sleeping giant. She uses her father's old master key to let herself in. She walks the empty corridors, her footsteps echoing. She is drawn toward the maintenance section. A single line of light glows from under a door she has never noticed before. It is a small, personal workshop. The door is slightly ajar. She peers through the crack. Elias Vance is inside. He is not working on company machinery. He sits on a simple wooden stool at a scarred workbench, bathed in the warm glow of a single articulating lamp. In front of him, on a velvet cloth, are the impossibly tiny, intricate brass components of an antique marine chronometer. He's holding a pair of tweezers in one hand and a watchmaker's loop to his eye. His movements are slow, deliberate, infinitely patient. He's not just repairing the object, he's communing with it. She watches, unseen, for what feels like an hour. She watches him work in the quiet solitude, a man completely at peace within his craft. She sees the integrity in his hands, the deep respect he holds for the object of his attention. She sees the man her father trusted, the man the governor called a hero, the soul of the company. She backs away from the door without making a sound. She walks back to her car, her mind racing. She knows what she has to do. Back in her father's office, the governor's words echo in her mind. She looks at the wall of mahogany bookshelves her father had so loved. She remembers a story he told her as a child about a secret hiding place. Behind a row of leather-bound maritime histories, she finds it. A small, flush-mounted safe. She has never known the combination. She takes her father's old wallet from her desk drawer. Inside a worn flap of leather, she finds a folded piece of paper. On it is a sequence of numbers, the date of her mother's birthday. Her hands tremble as she turns the dial. Left, right, left. A soft click. The heavy steel door swings open. Inside there is only one object, a thick, leather-bound journal. She takes it to the desk and opens it. The first page is dated 6 weeks before her father's death. His familiar, strong handwriting fills the pages. It is not a business log. It is a confession, a chronicle of betrayal. She reads for 2 hours, the city lights blurring through the tears in her eyes. The journal lays out the truth in stark, painful detail. It details Marcus Thorne's decade-long scheme of kickbacks and industrial espionage. He had been systematically replacing Shaw Maritime's high-quality suppliers with cheaper, inferior ones, routing the savings through shell companies into his own accounts. The A7 engine's failure was not an accident. The fuel injectors were cheap knockoffs Marcus had sourced from an overseas counterfeiter. He had engineered the failure to discredit the company's old guard, the craftsmen like Elias, and consolidate his own power under Eleonora. That is the first truth. The second is about Elias. Her father's writing about him is filled with a profound respect and affection that takes her breath away. Elias saved the X4 prototype today, a hairline fracture in the turbine housing that none of the scanners could detect. He found it by listening. He said it sounded tired. He is an artist, and his medium is steel and oil. I am merely a businessman. Marcus despises him. He sees Elias's integrity as a personal affront, a mirror that shows him his own hollow core. The journal details a dozen instances where Elias had quietly saved projects that Marcus's cost-cutting had nearly destroyed. He never took credit. He never asked for a reward. He just did the work. Then comes the final, devastating truth. Her father had uncovered the full extent of Marcus's treachery just before his fatal heart attack. The last entry is dated the day he died. Met with Elias this morning. Showed him everything. The shock on his face, not of betrayal, but of sorrow for me, for the company. I asked him for the impossible. I asked him to stay quiet, to endure what is coming. The board is too loyal to Marcus. They won't believe me without irrefutable proof. I need time to build the case. I asked Elias to be my anchor, to hold on, to protect the work from the inside until I could expose Thorn. He looked at me and said, "For you, Arthur, anything." He made a promise. God forgive me for what I have asked of that good man. Eleonora closes the journal. The weight of her father's last request and Elias's quiet fulfillment of it settles on her. His silence at the launch event was not weakness. It was strength. It was loyalty. It was a promise to a dead man, kept even at the cost of his own dignity. She finds him in the cavernous quiet of the maintenance bay, calibrating a pressure gauge. She walks up to him and places the journal on his workbench. He looks at the book, then at her face. He shows no surprise. "I'm sorry," she says, her voice cracking. "I didn't know." He nods slowly, his eyes on the journal. "He was a good man," is all he says. "Why?" she asks, the word a raw whisper. "Why didn't you say anything? You let me humiliate you." He finally looks up, and his gaze is direct, without pity or accusation. "Because you were his daughter," he says, "and you had to find your own way to trust me, the way he did." Later that day, she drives to his house. It is a small, neat bungalow on a quiet street. She needs to return the journal. She needs to say more, but she does not know the words. She walks up the short path and knocks on the door. It is opened not by Elias, but by his daughter, Lily. The girl looks up at her with those same serious, knowing eyes. She does not speak. She simply takes a step back, holding the door open. It is an invitation. Eleonora steps inside. The house is simple, clean, and smells of tomato soup and toasted bread. Elias is at the stove, stirring a pot. He glances over his shoulder, a question in his eyes. Eleonora holds out the journal. He nods, turning back to the stove. Lily walks up to Eleonora and holds out a piece of paper. It is a drawing done in crayon. It shows 3 stick figures, a tall one holding a wrench, a small one holding a flower, and a third one with long, dark hair standing next to them. All 3 are holding hands under a large, smiling sun. Lily pushes the drawing into Eleonora's hand. It is a gesture of acceptance, of inclusion. Eleonora looks down at the simple drawing, and for the second time that day, her eyes fill with tears. She is not crying for what she has lost. She is crying for what she is beginning to find. The next Monday, Eleonora calls a meeting with the heads of production. The news is grim. The A7 engine line is failing quality control tests at an alarming rate. Microfractures in the turbine blades, inconsistent fuel consumption, vibrations that exceed safety limits. The first major shipment is due in 2 weeks. Failure to deliver means catastrophic contract penalties. The mood in the room is one of quiet panic. Marcus Thorn, ever smooth, proposes a solution. "We'll run the diagnostics again," he says. "Triple the inspection teams. We can weed out the faulty units and still make the deadline." Eleonora looks at him from across the boardroom table. She sees the lie in his eyes. He is not trying to solve the problem. He is trying to hide it, to push it down the road past the delivery date. "No," she says. The room falls silent. "We are not shipping a single engine until we understand the root cause of the failure," she announces, her voice leaving no room for argument. "I'm shutting down the line, and I'm putting a new man in charge of fixing it." She looks directly at Marcus. Elias Vance. The shock on Marcus's face is exquisite. For 3 days and 3 nights, the A7 production line becomes their world. Eleonora has the first failed engine completely disassembled and its parts laid out on white cloths, like a patient on an operating table. She and Elias work side by side. He moves with a quiet, focused intensity. He speaks a language she has never heard, but is beginning to understand. The language of machines. He shows her things the diagnostic computers missed. The off-color tint of the metal in the turbine blades, a sign of improper tempering. The almost invisible tooling marks on the piston rings, evidence of cheap manufacturing. The faint chemical smell of the gaskets, wrong for the specified heat-resistant polymer. "He's been replacing everything," Elias says, his voice low and grim. "One piece at a time, over years, so no one would notice. He's built a house of cards." Eleonora, dressed in work coveralls, her hands stained with grease, learns from him. She learns the feel of perfectly machined steel, the smell of clean, high-grade lubricant, the sound of a bearing seating correctly in its housing. On the 3rd night, fueled by coffee and a shared, unspoken purpose, they find the core of the problem. It is the harmonic balancer, a critical component that counteracts engine vibration. "This is sintered iron," Elias says, holding the part in his palm. It feels light, almost brittle. It's powdered metal pressed into shape. It's cheap, and it's weak. He picks up another balancer from a dusty crate in the back of a storage room. It is heavier, denser. "This is the original specification," he says. "Forged steel, from the supplier Arthur used for 30 years, the one Marcus terminated the contract with." He taps the forged steel balancer. It rings with a clear, high note. He taps the sintered iron one. It makes a dull thud. "That," he says, "is the sound of failure." Eleonora calls an emergency board meeting for the following morning. She walks into the boardroom and feels her father's presence. She is calm. She is ready. Marcus Thorne is already there, smiling his predator's smile. "Eleonora," he says, "I hope you've come to your senses. We need to get the line moving." "Please take a seat, Marcus," she says, her voice cool. The board members file in, their faces etched with worry. When they are all seated, Eleonora begins. She does not raise her voice. She does not make accusations. She simply presents the facts. She projects the invoices from Apex Power Solutions onto the screen. She shows them the bank statements from the Shell Corporation, tracing payments back to an account owned by Marcus Thorne. She plays an audio recording of a conversation with the head of the company that made the faulty turbine blades, who admits to paying Marcus kickbacks for the contract. And then she places her father's journal on the polished table. "My father's last words," she says softly. A heavy silence descends upon the room. Marcus's face has gone pale, his composure finally cracking. "This is absurd," he sputters. "A grieving daughter's fantasy. There's no proof." One of the older board members, a man named Henderson, looks skeptical. "It's a lot of circumstantial evidence, Eleonora. Your father's notes, a disgruntled supplier." "He's right," Eleonora says. "You need more than that." She nods toward the back of the room. "Ask him." The boardroom doors open. Elias Vance steps inside. He is wearing his simple work clothes. He looks at no one but Eleonora. All eyes turn to him. "What is the meaning of this?" Henderson demands. "This is a board meeting." "Mr. Vance," Eleonora says, her voice clear, "could you please explain the issue with the A7's harmonic balancer?" Elias steps forward. He places the two balancers on the table, the dull one and the one that rings true. "The A7 uses a harmonic balancer made from sintered iron," he says. His voice is quiet, but it commands the room. "It's cheap. It'll develop microfractures and fail after approximately 500 hours of operation." He looks directly at Marcus Thorne. "The original design, Arthur's design, used forged steel. The purchase order was for forged steel. The parts delivered were not." His words are simple, technical, devastating. They are the undeniable truth, spoken by a man who deals only in truth. Marcus Thorne crumbles. He does not shout. He does not protest. He simply deflates, the air going out of him, leaving a shrunken, defeated man in an expensive suit. The vote is unanimous. Security is called. As Marcus is escorted from the room, his eyes meet Elias's for a brief moment. In them, Elias sees not hatred, but a final, grudging flicker of understanding. The craftsman had beaten the accountant. The board then votes on a second motion, to create the position of chief engineer, a role overseeing all design and production, a position her father had wanted to create. They offer it unanimously to Elias Vance. He does not accept immediately. He looks at Eleonora. She gives him a small, almost imperceptible nod. A new partnership, forged in truth. He turns to the board. "I accept," he says. After the meeting, the boardroom empties. Only Eleonora and Elias remain. The silence between them is no longer tense or uncertain. It is comfortable, earned. They walk together, not back to the executive offices, but down to the factory floor. The air is thick with the familiar scents of metal and oil. The sounds of machinery, once just noise to her, now have meaning. "Thank you," she says, her voice quiet. "I was just keeping a promise," he replies. They stop by the silent A7 assembly line. "What happens now?" she asks. "Now," he says, running a hand over the cool metal housing of an engine. "We do the work." The power dynamic between them is gone, replaced by a shared respect. They are no longer CEO and mechanic. They are partners. The next day, Elias is shown to his new office. It is on the executive floor, a large corner space with panoramic windows next to hers. He stands in the doorway for a long moment. He looks at the plush carpet, the expensive desk, the abstract art on the walls. Then he shakes his head. "No," he says to the facilities manager. "Thank you. I'll work from my old shop." He turns and walks away, back to the world of concrete floors and scarred workbenches. A week later, Eleonora arrives at the plant to find a construction crew in her office. They are carefully dismantling the vast glass walls. They are packing up the expensive furniture. She finds her assistant in the hallway, looking bewildered. "What's going on?" the assistant asks. "I'm moving," Eleonora says simply. Her new office is the small, unused space next to Elias's workshop. It is a quarter of the size of her old one. The window looks out not over the city, but over the factory floor. Her assistant is horrified. "But Miss Shaw, why?" "I need to be closer to the work," Eleonora says. It is the truest thing she has said since taking over the company. That evening, Elias finds a small, carefully wrapped box on his workbench. He opens it. Inside, nestled on a bed of black velvet, is a single, perfect gear. It is the escapement wheel from the antique marine chronometer he has been restoring. It is the heart of the machine. He had told her, during one of the long nights spent working on the A7, that it was the one part he could not fix, that he would have to find a replacement for. Somehow, she had found one, or had one made. Next to it is a small card with a note in her elegant handwriting, for keeping time. He picks up the small, intricate piece of brass. It is warm from the light of his lamp. He holds it in the palm of his calloused hand. It is not a gift of thanks. It is a gift of understanding, a symbol of a shared language, a promise of a new beginning, measured not in minutes or hours, but in the steady, patient ticking of a well-made machine. 3 months pass. Autumn yields to the first chill of winter. The company, once on the brink of collapse, is thriving. The redesigned engine, now named the A7V, is a triumph. The V is for Vance. It was Eleonora's idea. He had argued against it, but she had insisted. Legacy is important, she had said, looking him in the eye. Yours too. Orders are pouring in. The factory floor hums with a new energy, a renewed sense of pride. The house of cards has been rebuilt, this time on a foundation of steel and integrity. It is a Saturday. The sky is a brilliant, cloudless blue. Eleonora is not in her office. Elias is not in his workshop. They are at a small marina, the air sharp with the smell of salt and low tide. Lily stands between them on the dock, wearing a bright yellow life vest over her sweater. She holds both of their hands. In front of them, bobbing gently in the water, is a small wooden boat. It is an old vessel, a classic runabout from the 1950s. Elias has spent the last year restoring it, plank by plank. Its mahogany hull gleams, the varnish deep and lustrous. Inside it is the first A7V prototype, the one he and Eleonora rebuilt together. "Ready, Captain?" Elias asks Lily. She nods, her face serious. Aye, Daddy." He lifts her easily into the boat. He turns and offers a hand to Eleonora. She hesitates for only a second before taking it. His hand is rough, calloused, strong. It feels safe. He helps her aboard, his touch steady and respectful. He casts off the lines, and the boat drifts away from the dock. He takes his place at the helm and turns the key. The engine comes to life not with a roar, but with a deep, contented hum. It is a perfect sound. They glide out of the marina and into the open bay. The water is a sheet of dark glass. Elias pushes the throttle forward, and the boat rises onto a plain, a clean white wake spreading out behind them. Lily laughs, a sound of pure joy that gets caught by the wind. She trails her small hand in the cold, clear water. Eleonora sits in the passenger seat, the wind whipping through her hair, pulling it loose from its severe arrangement. She watches Elias at the helm. He is not smiling, not exactly, but the lines of tension around his eyes are gone. He looks younger. He looks at peace. He belongs here, with the sky above him and the steady rhythm of a good engine beneath him. She realizes with a sudden clarity that she belongs here, too. That evening, after a dinner of fish and chips eaten out of paper on the docks, they return to his small house. The air is cold now, and the stars are beginning to appear. They put a tired, happy Lily to bed. Eleonora reads her a story, her voice soft in the quiet house. Elias stands in the doorway, watching. He does not speak. He does not need to. After the girl is asleep, they go outside and stand on the small front porch. A light fog is rolling in from the sea, blurring the lights of the town across the water. They stand near each other, not touching, their shoulders almost brushing. The silence between them is full. It is full of the things they have overcome. It is full of the respect they have earned. It is full of a future that is still unwritten. He turns his head and looks at her. His gaze is steady, clear. It holds questions he does not yet know how to ask. She meets his gaze, and her own holds answers she is not yet ready to speak. He does not reach for her. She does not close the small distance between them. There is no need. For now, this is enough. This quiet, earned stillness, this unspoken promise, hanging in the cool, salt-scented air. A beginning.